In Sendo village, there lived a kind woman named Happiness and her husband Samuel. They had 3 little children. Everyone in the village was a farmer. They grew crops like tomatoes and corn to make money and feed their families. One day, Samuel went to the farm to pick tomatoes. While he was there, a big storm came. The wind was very strong and the rain was heavy. Samuel didn't come home that night. Happiness and the children waited and waited, but Samuel did not return. Happiness became very worried. She went to the king's palace to tell him her husband was missing. When did he go to the farm? The king asked. Yesterday, Happiness answered. The king quickly sent his guards to the farm to find Samuel. After a long search, the guards found Samuel, but it was too late. Samuel had passed away. Happiness cried, and the children were very sad too. 3 months passed, and Happiness thought, "How will I take care of my children now?" She wanted to help her children go to school. So she started frying akara bean cakes to sell to the villagers. Every day she made akara, and the people loved it. They started calling her Madam Akara. Madam Akara worked very hard. She used the money she made to send her children to school. The children were very smart and worked hard in their studies. They finished school and became a doctor, a lawyer, and an engineer. One day, the children came home and hugged their mother. "Thank you, Mommy, for never giving up." "We know it was not easy," they said. Happiness smiled with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, my children. I am so proud of you. Your father would have been proud too. God has helped us." After some time, people in the village stopped calling her Madam Akara. Now they called her Mummy Doctor, Lawyer, and Engineer. Her story was told to children in the village, teaching them to never give up, no matter how hard life gets. And so the story of Madam Akara was passed down from one generation to the next, always reminding everyone of the power of love and hard work. Happiness, now known as Mummy Doctor, Lawyer, and Engineer, became a symbol of strength and hope in Sendo village. Every morning, she would wake up early to prepare her akara, even though she didn't need to sell them anymore. The people still came to buy from her, not just for the food, but for the wisdom and kindness she shared with everyone. One day, a young girl from the village named Binta came to visit her. Binta had just finished her schooling, but she was scared. She didn't know what to do next. She sat in front of Mummy Doctor, Lawyer, and Engineer and asked, "How did you do it? How did you stay strong when everything was so hard?" Happiness smiled warmly and handed Binta a plate of akara. "My dear," she began, "life is not easy for anyone. There will be storms just like the one that took Samuel away, but when life knocks you down, you have to get up and keep moving. You must find something you love, something that helps you take care of yourself and those around you. For me, it was making akara. It may not seem like much, but it was enough to help my children grow and become who they are today." Binta looked at her with wide eyes. "But what if I fail? What if I'm not strong enough?" Happiness reached out and took Binta's hand. "We all have times when we feel weak, but that's when we must remember we are not alone. Look around you, there are people who care about you, who will help you. And most importantly, you must believe in yourself. No matter what happens, don't give up. Even small steps can lead to great things. Binta felt a little more courage in her heart. She smiled and thanked Mummy Doctor, lawyer, and engineer for her kind words. She promised to work hard and never give up, just like Happiness had done. And so the story of Madam Akara continued to inspire many people in Sendo village. Every time someone felt lost or afraid, they would visit her and she would remind them of the same lesson. No matter what life brings, keep going, keep believing, and never give up on yourself. As the years went by, Happiness grew older, but her spirit remained strong. Her children, now grown and with families of their own, always came back to visit her, telling her how much she had taught them. And the village, too, never forgot the story of the woman who turned something as simple as akara into a way to change the future for her family. And so the legend of Madam Akara lived on, showing everyone that with love, hard work, and hope, anything is possible. As the years passed, Happiness continued to live peacefully in Sendo village. Her children had built wonderful lives for themselves. They often came back to visit, bringing their own children with them, filling Happiness' home with laughter and joy. One sunny afternoon, Happiness sat outside her small house, watching the children play in the yard. She smiled, thinking about how far her family had come. Just then, her eldest son, the doctor, walked over and sat beside her. "Mama," he said softly, "you've given us so much. But you've spent your whole life working and taking care of us. Maybe it's time you rest and let us take care of you." Happiness chuckled. "Oh, my son, I've never felt like I was working. Selling akara, raising you, it brought me joy, not just because I had to do it, but because it was my way of showing love. Besides, I'm too old to start resting now," she said with a wink. Her son smiled, knowing there was no convincing her otherwise. "Still, we want to do more for you, Mama. You've done enough for everyone." Just then, her other children joined them, and they all sat together, talking and sharing memories of the past. The lawyer, her daughter, spoke up. "Mama, do you know how many people in the village still talk about you? Your story has inspired so many. Even when I go to the city, people there know about Madam Akara. They tell your story to their children, teaching them to be strong and brave like you." Happiness was quiet for a moment, taking in her daughter's words. "I never thought my simple life would become a story for others," she said. "I only did what I had to do to keep us going." Her youngest son, the engineer, who had always been quieter than the others, looked at his mother with admiration. "Mama, you didn't just keep us going. You made us who we are today. You taught us to never give up, no matter how hard things got. That's a lesson we carry with us every day." Happiness' heart filled with pride. She looked at her children, now all grown, successful, and happy. "I am blessed," she said softly. "Your father would be so proud of all of you. I know he's watching over us, smiling." The children nodded, feeling the same. Even though their father had passed many years ago, his presence was still felt in their hearts. As the evening sun began to set, the children gathered around their mother, each one thanking her again for the sacrifices she had made, for the love she had given, and for the strength she had shown through the toughest times. "Mama," they said together, "you will always be our hero." And so, Happiness continued to live her days in peace, surrounded by the love of her family. Her story, the story of Madam Akara, was no longer just a story of struggle, but one of victory, love, and resilience. It was passed down to new generations, reminding everyone that no matter how simple your life may seem, you can make a difference. And every time someone mentioned Madam Akara, they spoke not just of the woman who fried Akara, but of a mother whose love built a future for her children and for her entire village.